We don't need 10 million people working here. We need 15,000 people who love what we do, how we do it, and who we do it for.
Yeah. In my time at Notre Dame, I've leaned on insights from a host of great leaders. And one topic that typically comes up is culture. Enter Benchwarmers, a series of conversations about winning cultures, how they're developed, how they're sustained, and even what undoes them. Like many spirited conversations at Notre Dame, we share these ideas on a bench. This first season was filmed in 2019, before the pandemic would have made this production much different. Our first guest, Jack Brennan, is a former president, CEO, and chair at Vanguard, one of the largest investment companies in the world. He remains very involved in Vanguard as its chairman emeritus and senior advisor. He's also in his second term as chairman of the board of trustees at the University of Notre Dame. He's a good friend of the university and Notre Dame athletics. Welcome, Jack Brennan. Jack, welcome to the bench.
It's a treat. Aspirations, actually, as a college athlete to be a bench warmer. I'll have to say I spent a little time doing it, and it was very motivational to get me the heck off the bench. So anyways.
This would have been the only place I was a college athlete, would have been on the bench. You were a very successful college athlete, in not just one sport.
No, listen, I was a college athlete. We'll let the adjective be defined by somebody else, but it was a crucial part of what college was for me. And I look back, and that's why I'm such a huge proponent of and supporter of athletics as a core part of any university, but especially this university, because I know what it did for me.
So you were a recruited student athlete, highly sought after prospect. You picked Dartmouth. Why?
It's a long story, but first, I did want to go to a place where I could play at least 2, if not 3 sports. Top level, hockey in particular, but I needed a lacrosse team to go with that as well. So that narrowed the field down to where I might consider going. And it was great good fortune for me. I had a great experience academically, athletically, and most importantly, it's where I met my wife. Everything else could have been a failure. I consider that a success for me. I'm not sure for her. By the way, we're not going to ask her.
Episode 2.
Yeah, exactly. What do you really think?
As a student here, my greatest fan interest was Notre Dame hockey. They had a heck of a team back then.
They did, and it was amazing. Eastern snobs, it was amazing to us that they could produce such a good team. What you've done in lacrosse, my other sport is, not to pick it out among sports, but it defies the odds. It is an Eastern sport, and there are fabulous institutions you can go to play it. And I don't know for sure, but I'm confident we're one of the 1, 2, 3 best records in the last 15 years cumulatively. It's the power of Notre Dame, right? I get everything I would get there, plus. And to me, that's the magic of Notre Dame athletics, frankly, is striving to be the best and doing it the right way.
Whenever I tell people I know you,
after they offer condolences, what do they say?
Almost always they talk about the Vanguard culture. I mean, I just can't think of a lot of businesses where it is more identified with the culture that exists within the business than it is at Vanguard. And you're identified as the person who helped to build that culture. I know you don't want to credit for building it by yourself.
Thank you.
But talk to me a little bit about identifying the need to do that and then how you go about doing it.
So the need starts with differentiation, in my opinion. I think culture is the only sustainable competitive advantage that an institution, whether it's an academic institution or a governmental institution or a church or a corporation, can have. And I mean sustainable if you have an objective to be great, get better, and endure. And I had, had the privilege of working at a place before I went to Vanguard for a short period of time called S.C. Johnson Wax in Racine, Wisconsin. Family-owned, unbelievable culture. And we didn't really have a culture when I went to Vanguard. They were trying, but weren't quite sure they knew what they wanted to be or how to be it. And my predecessor, CEO, and my partner for 14 years, one of the reasons he hired me was he wanted a different point of view on things. And so we stepped back and said, how are we going to be differentiated and compelling to the marketplace, but also, as importantly, compelling as a place to work? And we made a very conscious effort. So frankly, we had to change people. We had to define really effectively what were the core values upon which we build this culture and never move from them. And then what do we need in the people to make it happen? And we made some mistakes along the way, but again, I think it's a virtuous circle. If you have a compelling culture, it's a differentiator in the marketplace. I believe that's very true for Notre Dame, as it is for Vanguard. It's going to attract people who will come for the mission and the culture, not for $10,000 extra pay or something else. And then the big challenge, Jack, and you know this well, is sustaining and nurturing that culture. And it's, to me, it's where organizations fall down. It's hard work. It's, in our case, we're a highly regulated institution. We have no tangible assets, right? We got one thing, and it's the trust of our clients and the loyalty of our employees, who we call crew members rather than employees. And we tell people we have no safety net. If you ever cut a corner, you ever put our reputation for integrity and trust at risk, you could kill us. And by the way, it is black and white here. And if that's not for you, go someplace else. We're never going to say, that's a great salesperson, let's treat her different. We're never going to say, that's a great investor, let's treat him different. And to me, that's, when I look over almost 40 years now, which goes by like that, the thing that's most remarkable to me about the culture of, and I'm talking about Vanguard, but it's really generic statement, is it's as strong or stronger today as it was when we started this journey in the early 80s.
Whenever you say particularly insightful things, we're going to ring the Basilica bells. Yeah. Okay. Came across 5 leadership lessons with former Vanguard CEO,
oh boy,
Jack Brennan.
I hope it was ghostwritten well.
I'm sure it wasn't ghostwritten. The first was measure the right things the right way. Second one was make loyalty relevant to every employee.
We've always hired people, and first day you get visited by one of the senior people. And for many, many years, I would always take the pre-lunch spot and say, I hope this is your last job. And if you're 22, it feels like a jail sentence, right? But we promise you a career, not a job. And we will demonstrate that by giving you opportunity, and we will demonstrate that by the way we reward you and so on, because we truly believe that loyalty is a two-way street, and we will do that. And it served us unbelievably well. Our current CEO started as a summer kid.
Yeah. I love businesses that are systematic about connecting senior level management to new people, young people in the business, right? Because you can't let it happen by chance.
25 years, I had breakfast with 15 random new people every week. Phenomenal experience. Yeah. Phenomenal experience. I had 15 of them one day rewrite the mission statement for the company. Mr. Brennan, I read our mission statement, which I hadn't paid any attention to because I'm not a big believer in that stuff. And they said, I don't even understand it. And I said, what do you think our mission is? And they said, to create better financial futures for our clients who are loyal to us. I went, oh, that sounds pretty good. Literally, it was a Thursday at a Friday board meeting. I went to the board and I said, I don't think you guys have to pass on this, but can Kid who said it had been here 6 months. Out of the mouths of babes, right?
Don't confuse customer service and customer loyalty.
In any business, attracting new customers is the hard thing and the expensive thing. Retaining them is the low-cost thing. That was one of the things we figured out early on. Anybody can answer the phones. It's how you answer the phones. Anybody can solve a problem. It's how you solve the problem. Anybody can offer a better deal. It's how broadly do you offer the better deal. Somebody stopped me on the plane on the way out here yesterday. She goes, "You look just like Jack Brennan." And I was tempted to say, I get that all the time, but I thought I might get outed on it. But she said, "I just want to thank you for what you and your company have done for my family. We're just small investors." And I said, this is going to sound trite. There are no such thing as small investors. Every single person, I don't care if you have $1 billion or 1,000, you're one of the owners of this company, and we're going to stand our rights for
you. Leverage the power of the CEO to focus the organization.
I actually have never been the person who respects position or power, which is on the list of 7,000. Yeah, on the list of 7,000 character flaws, it's high on the list. And literally, somebody said I'm the boss. I didn't bother. I couldn't care less. But most of the world does. I didn't understand that, frankly, when I was young, because it was not my nature. My nature.
Exactly.
You have to understand. I learned this I got smacked upside the head by a guy who I was going to terminate. He said, "You don't understand. Everybody in this company," and I was the president, not the CEO at the time. "Everybody in this company hangs on every single thing you say and thing you do. You got to carry that burden for the rest of your life." It was a great lesson.
You mentioned something which I've humbly named the Swarbrick paradox, but
unaccustomed as I am to naming things after myself.
It's my experience that frequently people who are best able to lead are the ones who are least likely to perceive the need for leadership, especially by them, because they don't look for that in themselves.
I think it's a brilliant observation, and it's so true. Father Jenkins is the paramount example of that in so many ways, right? I think in the absolute best sense, it's a calling. And my guess is, like most great leaders, in some ways, he thinks he's faking it every day. It's funny when you see somebody who says, "I'm here to be the boss." I think you got no shot. You got no shot.
What screws up good cultures? When people get it and they've sustained it for a while, what are the threats? What gets them?
Oh, I think there's a few things. Thinking that emulation creates great culture is one thing, because great cultures are generally differentiated. And, there's kind of two ways to think about culture. There's distinctive and competitively advantageous, and then there's safe. And safe is where most people and organizations feel most comfortable and want to be there. So being different from our peers is an uncomfortable place to be competitively. I think it's a great place to be. And then the second thing is I compromise. Yes, but.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing you can do. You have to say there are certain parts of this culture that are permanent and inviolable. And then third, and probably most obviously, is bad leader. Great cultures are created by and sustained by great leadership, where they know who they are, they know how they compete, they know how they attract and retain employees in their admirable places. We've talked about this.
There's sort of a self-selection that occurs. When you build the culture, people are either attracted to it or they're not, right? I mean, most people are going to sign up for this.
Exactly right. One man who was leaving, and we were happy to see him go, reaches over my desk and says, "You're an acquired taste." And I said, "I don't know what to tell you. We don't need 10 million people working here. We need 15,000 people who love what we do, how we do, and who we do it for."
Yeah.
As an organization, we get up every day and say, "I hope yesterday was the worst we ever were." I always come back to this idea that great culture, great strategy is uncomfortable. And it's why so few institutions attempt to establish that culture and follow that strategy, but they're the winning organizations, and obviously this is a winning organization. Listen, I know a lot about, taking a little company and making it a big company. In the early days, 200 people. So every hire was critical, but you can never change from that view when it's 15,000. Every hire is still critical. You do a different kind of hiring in some ways with coaches and key members of your administrative team. Very high profile. How do you think about that in terms of the criticality of each on the one hand and getting it right on the other?
Yeah. One of the things we stress is never, ever start with the candidate pool. Start with the characteristics.
Just going to ask you that, whether you start with that.
Always with the characteristics. Because what people don't understand is how much they change. We screened every sitting Division I college coach and several others against those 11 or 12 characteristics. It took us down to a pool of about 12 people in the country.
I'm surprised there were 12. But
yeah. And then when you vetted those, it took us to maybe half a dozen.
Right.
And that was it. And so stay focused on those. But then it is the last thing, which we've touched on several things here. It's got to be a fit. You have to come here for the right reasons. I got the best piece of advice from Gene Corrigan when I took this job. He said, when you hire a coach, during the interview process, give them a list of things that'll never change here. Because in the first 30 days, they're going to come back into your office and say, I need this changed, right?
Yep.
And you pull out the list and say, remember this list? It was on it. It's not changing. We're going to be a residential university. You're not changing that. Academic services isn't going to be out of the athletic department. It's going to be out of the provost's office. Drug testing is going to be out of the president's office. You're not going to have anything to do with student discipline. All the things that define this place, if a candidate doesn't embrace those and see them as positive, if they see them as challenges, right? Oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? They can't fit here. If they say, boy, I love that distinctiveness. That's what's going to help me succeed here, then they're the right fit.
It's so parallel to our journey. Actually, the guy who's now the CEO of Vanguard came in one day and said, I've seen you talk about just that 27 times. Why don't you write it down? I said, sure, meaning get out of my office. And next thing I know, I write this book called The Vanguard Leader. We give it to prospects. Still, it's in its 4th edition, and it's evolved a little bit, but not around the core. Take this, read it, and then we'll talk, because that is not going to change. And it's improved our hit ratio dramatically. And it's not right or wrong, it's just us. That's the way it is. And it's so important. I love the things that won't change list. That's actually a pretty good one. I might have to steal that one too, because it's more succinct.
We are sitting here on a football Friday with the campus coming alive, and it will get more and more alive. Which brings me to the final question as we sit here on what the students affectionately call the God Quad,
exactly.
The original quad on campus. Why this bench?
I'm still recovering from the Benchwarmer series. I'm like, you spend your life, and here's where I end up, a bench warmer. I'm like, my word. But I go for a run, start the day, a campus run. I always try to stop here because it represents, to me, everything about Notre Dame. It's the CSC in the Basilica, the CSC in Corby Hall. The founders, the faith basis of this institution, which differentiates us. It's our patroness on the top. It's the world's best academic leadership team in the main building. It's students in a dorm. It's a gathering place for students. It's research over here. And on a good winter day, you can catch a flag. Yeah, I think you can catch a flag on the most iconic sports facility maybe in the world. So for me, it says everything about who we are as an institution. But very importantly for me, I never stop without saying thank you, because to see what this place did for our kids because of its unique culture of faith and excellence, this is the greatest gift our family ever got.
Well, from the perspective of one member of the university's leadership, you have more than repaid that gift by the time and talents you've given to make this place better. We are so fortunate to have you in that role. It's great that you bring the perspective you do. You make us better. Thanks for being with us.
Couldn't be better. Thank you, Jack.
See ya.
Really great.